The Speaking of Cults podcast is presented solely for general informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from it is at the user's own risk. The views, information, or opinions expressed by the host and guests are solely those of the individuals involved and do not constitute medical or other professional advice. Hello and welcome to the Speaking of Cults podcast. This is Chris Shelton, your host. Thank you very much for joining me again this week. We are going to dive this week into the world of sales, marketing, maybe some fraudulent type behavior connected with some of that, or at least promises that are hyperbolic. And I have guest Ben John on today, and he is someone who has had some direct experience with Grant Cardone, who is a high-level Scientologist who is involved in real estate, investing, and sales seminars, I guess we'll call them, selling. It's very, for anybody who has paid attention to my channel over the years, talking deep dive about multi-level marketing schemes, a lot of the language we're going to probably discuss today will be, or a lot of the concepts around Grant Cardone are very similar to what you run into in multi-level marketing. So Ben also has a YouTube channel called Today's Misguided Mentors and does business consulting under Massive Impact. Hi, Ben. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing, Chris?
Thanks for being part of this today.
You bet.
Yeah, so I guess we should just kind of get right into it here. You have history with Grant Cardone. When did that history begin, and how did you get lured into what I'm already kind of putting out there is something kind of bad, right? So I don't have any questions about Grant Cardone's intentions or what he's up to, but tell us, what was your experience with him?
Yeah, well, it's funny that, when we're talking about cults, Grant Cardone's name always comes up somehow. But yeah, to answer your question, thinking back on it now, I think it's probably 2019 or so is kind of when I got introduced to it. And I was just talking about this on one of my own, live streams just the other day I did when I was reviewing the 10X rulebook, which is one of his books. And that was my introduction to Grant Cardone, who he was, and his organization and his whole 10X movement thing.
Right.
But yeah, and then I also broke down how the book actually got into my head and kind of took a deep dive, really, in how he was able to kind of brainwash me in a way, and kind of, I got pretty vulnerable about it, and just talking about how he was able to really get into my head. And next thing you know, I'm going to the seminars you were just talking about, and I'm spending $10, $20, $30, $40,000 here until I'm up to, a couple $100,000 deep. And I'm also a 10X certified business coach with the organization. So I got pretty deep into it, but I think it's 2019, and then it went on for a few years.
Okay. All right. I get that. And I mean, fortunately you got out after a few years. Some people get caught up in these things for decades. Good times.
Yeah. It's really sad. Yeah.
It kind of is. So it's good that you got out, and not only that, but your YouTube channel, I mean, you're clearly working on trying to expose and show how there's this kind of dark side to, entrepreneurship and the business world. And it seems in these desperate, sort of anxious economic times that we're going to see a lot more of this kind of thing going on. It's really been it's been going on for a long, long time. So it's not like this is anything new, but I do think we're seeing an increase. What do you think from, you've been talking about this for a couple of years. Do you think that con men in the business world are on the rise, or do you think it's business as usual for these guys?
Well, I think it's both. I think it's business as usual. And, the pandemic is when you're seeing a huge surge in it, because at that time, coaches and mentors who were being deceptive and manipulative kind of was at an all-time high, and kind of spiked during that time because uncertainty was also at an all-time high, especially in the economy. And so, especially for business owners and entrepreneurs, and that's kind of how, or kind of who the coaches and mentors, the self-serving entrepreneurs, as I call them, and the ones that are kind of predatory, that's kind of when they started capitalizing on those type of people and preying on that vulnerability. So it's sad to see, but I don't think they're going anywhere. I've realized that, and that's why I talk about it quite a bit. I've realized, it's such an unregulated industry. Nobody's doing anything about it. I don't know if anybody can. The industry is set up to where they can dance in and out of the lines of legality.
Yep.
And so it's hard to prove, if someone's scamming or brainwashing. You can't really prove brainwashing.
No, it's a funny word. Yeah.
And so that's why I do what I do. If I can't, if nobody can do anything about this unregulated industry, at least somebody maybe can talk about it and try to prepare people. Encourage people to discern for themselves, pay attention to certain things, don't ignore red flags they may see. If you're going to be involved in these type of atmospheres, whether it's public speaking or networking or these type of seminars that we keep bringing up, I think that's the most we can at least, or the least we can do, rather, I should say.
Oh, I agree. I think it really is on us. Because you're absolutely right. It's an unregulated activity. The laws, the exceptions have already been carved out for multi-level marketing schemes and for, these sort of fraudulent entrepreneurial selling. I'll just call it that because there's really air. There's nothing there. You can sell a service, you can sell a good, which is a tangible thing, or you can sell a service where you're going to go do something for somebody, like roof their house or move a refrigerator for them, or, renovate their basement. And this is a service. You're not buying things, you're buying the person's time. But with selling, you're really investing a lot of money in what? Well, and yet we find a great many people, and you're an example of this, who spend quite a bit of time and quite a bit of money pursuing or chasing this. And so I'm curious if you could help clarify what is it that is being chased and why, and what are the emotions driving this? I talk about emotional needs a lot. We don't have to go too deep into, I'm not trying to psychoanalyze you or a class of people. I'm just curious what thoughts occur to you while it's happening. Then there's the reflection after the fact of, oh boy, I really got caught up in stuff. But what did you get caught up in?
So, and that's a great question, actually. And I think the honest answer to that for myself, I can say is that there are good sayings and there are good things that a lot of these cults, whether it's, I see you got the Scientology book, whether it's Scientology or Nexium or any of these, popular, or, there's a bunch of cults out there people don't know about too, there's a way they're able to get in your head with good sayings and invest in yourself, right? That's a good saying, and it's an example of how taking a good saying like that can be turned into something bad. And next thing you know, you're getting brainwashed, literally, and taking that quite literally, and spending a bunch of money, and nothing's really happening. I guess if you spend a ton of money, something's going to happen. Nothing ever happens. And next thing you know, it's just that next level thing.
Yeah. It'll all be resolved on the next level.
Yeah, which is a whole nother conversation, which pertaining to Scientology, that is, I mean, it's quite fascinating that, I didn't even know, I was with Grant Cardone's 10X organization for several years, and I didn't even know he was a Scientologist.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. They don't, but then I heard as I left, I didn't know what Scientology even was.
Yep.
Started learning about it, and then obviously was kind of mind blown that organization that Grant has built is pretty much modeled and mimicked exactly like Scientology. And so it's almost like I was being turned into a Scientologist without even knowing it, which is a weird feeling.
Yes.
But I also realized there's a lot of other organizations in the self-help space that really do a lot of the same stuff, you know?
Yeah. But what is it? What was it that got you? Because there's a hook, right? There's something that hooks you, and you're like, "Hey, wait a minute! This is something I need." It goes from you're walking along, or you're watching TV, or you're doing whatever you're doing. You're going through life. You don't know anything about this thing, and then it enters into your life, and then suddenly, I need this.
Yeah.
I need to pay for this. This is a lot of money, and I need it. What was that for you?
Yeah, I don't think I knew I needed it. You know what I mean? And it's so funny that you asked it like that, because I've talked about it, and I explained this exact moment where I was listening to that book, The 10X Rule, and he's and Grant's saying things like, you know, you're living below your potential. You know, you could be, you know, I don't know, how does he put it? You're like you're a disgrace to your family, or kind of something put in that way, you know, like if you're living below your potential, or you're mean, you know, I don't know, makes you feel shamed for not doing a lot, not spending a lot, not saying yes to everything, not committing to everything. When really the agenda, I realized as I got closer to Grant Cardone's organization, speaking from my experience, the agenda was to, you know, say yes to him, you know, commit to him, you know, invest in his organization. And so that's what I found out as I got closer and started getting closer to that organization, but didn't realize it was actually happening. It was such a slow pivot, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It very, very much is a slow process. We've compared it to the throwing a frog in the, you know, in the water, and then turning the heat up real slow, like, so if it, you know, it gets to boiling, but it obviously doesn't start there, because nobody would get in the tub if it was.
Right.
That's the whole process of the slow burn, and it does end up burning you pretty hard. You mentioned that there were these mantras, these sayings, these things that would sort of get you, and also that there was this shaming. I think that's a perfect point to start with on this, because I think that's exactly right. This is this is something people respond to universally.
Yeah.
You know, and you can find. I've watched video of a guy named Werner Erhard do the exact same mantras and pitch and accusations and actually even you were reading it through a book. He used to do these group seminars, which I know Grant gets into as well, where he'll just yell at you straight out, "You're blah, you're blah, you're blah," right, and shame everybody in the room into, "Oh my God, I've got to do something." And then comes all this shame and blame. And then, but you can change it all. You can change, you know, all you have to do is all you have to do is become me, and you'll be perfect, right? Is sort of the pitch. At what point does that start happening within the, or is it right away in the book? What is it that is being given to you? How are you being told or convinced?
You know,
you to invest in
at the point when I've always said it this way: if there's, you know, the sign of a good coach or a mentor is one who encourages you to think for yourself. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And if they're encouraging you to do that, then that's someone who actually cares. That's a good human being, and that's someone who actually, you know, has their shit together, if you will. Mm-hmm. Someone who's seeking or encouraging you or suggesting you to seek them for the answers, for advice, for the playbook, the blueprint to whatever success or this or that, that's a red flag. And so I would say that's the point.
Right,
You
right.
know, and whatever point you experience that, either it's going to feel good or you're going to get a red flag about it. And so some people, you know, the ones who are really in touch with their intuition are going to notice that. And a lot of us, unfortunately, ignore those red flags and start to just go with the flow because we want to fit in, you know, or we want to, I don't know. There's a lot of attracting energy to it. And so, like I was telling you at first, I didn't even know, you know, it was kind of like Grant got in my head just saying, you know, hey, I'm living below my potential. And I was thinking to myself, I am, you know, it was almost like, like I was being talked into it.
Yeah. No,
'Cause at that point, yeah, because at that point I already had my own company for a couple years. It was going great, and so there was no reason for me to start really thinking like that. But it turned into that.
Now that's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people will get into this sort of thing because they're down. They're down in the dumps. They're down. They're out. They're broke. You know, Grant has his own rags to riches story he likes to tell. And he encourages, you know, and he seems to be looking for people who are on the outs or who are wondering what to do or don't have the answers or aren't clear what their direction in life is. You had a successful situation going. Did you just want to make it better? Did 10X appeal to you as a, oh gosh, if I just put a little bit more effort into this, I could be, you know, a millionaire? Or what was the thinking on this?
It was the fitting in aspect. You know, if I'm being honest about it, it's, you know, the wanting to fit in with this. You know, I didn't really know much about cults, you know, like the psychology and how cults work.
Yeah.
But I think that definitely played a part in it. Thinking back on it now, and after I had, you know, after I'd already went through this whole cycle of not being in a cult, being in a cult, not being in a cult, one in one now, I can kind of see how it happened and kind of, you know, really analyze a lot of that process.
Sure.
But fitting in was part of it. Like I said, with like this elite group, you know, it's hard to explain, you know, like if you're part of the, one thing I'm noticing now is cults they do a really good job at like creating this atmosphere that, it's like, if you're part of this, then you get it, right? And people who are not part of it are average. They don't get it. They're not investing in themselves. They're not willing to, and so, yeah, so there was that, you know, but there's a lot of reasons, but that's one of the main reasons for sure, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, that fits. That makes sense. Social pressures and social hierarchy and fitting in it drives, you know, what, 75% of our behavior. I'll just pull that number out of my whatever, but that's, you know, I mean, there's just so much to us being social creatures. How did you hear about this? Did you find the book in a bookstore one day, or did somebody give it to you? Were you proselytized to, so to speak, or what? How did you hear about this in the first place?
My nephew gave it to me.
Okay.
Yeah. So my nephew was kind of into self-development, had the book, said, and knew I was into, like, you know, into, you know, motivation and entrepreneurialism type stuff. And so handed me the book, said, check it out. I think you might like this. And, you know, Grant got me. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, he did. I was just curious how. So through the book, and then you contacted him through what, a website or his organization, or what? How did the pipeline work?
I think they just started calling me. You know,
Because they started calling you?
No, I bought. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. If you get on Grant's email list,
So you signed up for his email list?
probably.
Okay.
Probably.
Okay.
I think the first thing so the first thing I bought was a what they call a, you know, Grant sells this thing called Cardone University, where essentially it's just this It's a bunch of videos of him talking and teaching certain stuff, which is, I don't know, it's a waste of money in my opinion. It's definitely not worth what he's charging. And so what's kind of very unethical, which it didn't really seem like a red flag at the time, but didn't, but this is another example, this little quick story here, but basically, at that time, there was only like three of me, like me and two other employees I had at the time. At one time, I did have 10 employees in three different crews in my own construction company, but this was early on. But anyways, I was on the phone with someone. They talked me into buying 10 different Cardone University accounts. And I was telling them, I was like, well, I'm the only sales rep right now, so it wouldn't make sense for me to have 10. And they're like, well, do you want 10 sales reps in your company? And I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, of course, but I don't have that right now. And somehow they were able to talk me into saying, well, you're never going to have 10 sales reps unless you actually have the 10 accounts first.
Right.
It's never going to happen because you're never going to believe it's going to happen. And so they're kind of using this whole manifestation thing against me. And like, that's another example of how I was telling you, like, some good is used for bad. Because like, I believe in manifestation, but that example right there is kind of like, that's just a dark way of using that as leverage and manipulation.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's what happened, and that's an example of
yeah.
a good message being used for bad. Let's put it that way.
Well, for sure. I used to sell Scientology. That very familiar.
And that was $18,000 for 3 years.
Jesus, $18,000.
That was my first. That was my first. That was my introductory sale.
Oh, they must have loved you. That is interesting. And of course, it all sounds reasonable in the moment and all of that. And there's a lot of I mentioned the word emotion just because that's how there's a lot of manipulation of emotion that, that gets you to where you go, oh, okay, yes, of course I should, give you all this money. How does it go from you're signed up, you're buying access to a website, basically the Cardone University, to translating over to real world? When did you first connect with the group in the real world, and what did that look like?
Yeah. So after that sale, the $18,000 package for a few years for the 10 accounts that I didn't need at the time. Now I'm training on Grant Cardone. So now I'm like really starting to get brainwashed by him, watching all these videos of Grant Cardone all the time talking. Just classic cult stuff, man, that I had no idea I was getting involved in, right? When I think about it now.
Let me ask you this, actually, let me cut you off. I'm so sorry, but let me ask you real fast. From the book and from those videos, what did you do differently in your life or in your business? What was it you were being told to do that you then, I need to change this up. Here's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good question. I honestly, when I say, I think the biggest thing is they're teaching how to, when it comes to selling and trying to like get people to do something, there's a lot of deception, manipulation, interrogation, harassment, shaming, bullying, stuff like that. That's being taught, and you don't even realize it. It's not so like in your face, you know what I mean? But that's what I was taught anyway. And I noticed that my sales in my own business, I would take what Grant was teaching me, because I was learning it from him virtually. I would apply it to my own sales process with my own customers in my own company that I created. And it was it's not that it did worse for me. I still would make sales, but the problem is these sales felt bad. I did not feel good about these sales because I was like forcing, I was manipulating, I was pressuring. This is not my way
Right. Right.
of doing sales, you know? And so, yeah, it just didn't feel good. And so, I think that's I can't remember what your question was, but I think,
No, you just answered it. I was
just,
just curious how you changed in your day to day of approaching your job as a result of what Grant was telling you to do, which you just
okay.
described. Yeah.
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 And what's crazy is when I left, I had to deconstruct. So I went from, when I started my own company and not really chasing the money and just wanting to do a good job, give people a good experience, to now learning these deceptive tactics for a few years, and then leaving and then being like, holy shit, now I got to deconstruct everything and go back to that. So yeah, it's been a roller coaster, to be honest.
I'll bet it is. I've been there myself. When did you, so let me fast forward then to something I'm curious about in this. When did you meet Grant?
So I've only met Grant out of all the years I was a business coach. I've only met Grant twice and it was very brief.
Oh,
He makes it seem like he's a god, you can't touch him. You're like, you gotta pay like, $10,000 for 5 minutes of his time or something stupid. I don't know.
wow. Wow.
Like, or $100,000 for an hour, which is
Wow.
all bullshit. None of that's true.
Wow.
But
That's a lot.
yeah, so I was always the guy who was in the front of the room at the 10X headquarters in Aventura, which is where he's based out of. I always be sitting next to him quite a bit, but he's in and out, man. He does not linger very much. He doesn't talk to these
Wow.
people that have spent hundreds and thousands. Some people claim they've spent millions,
Wow.
with Grant and Cardone, between Cardone Capital and the business part of it and all this stuff. So, yeah.
Is there an idea within the culture of Grant's organization or followers, which you were part of? So I'm sure we can speak to this. That is there the idea that you need to become him or get a little taste of him or something and somehow to rub off on you, or like what's the idea with him? What is the secret sauce you think he's got that he's gonna? How is that gonna translate to you? What was the idea there?
Well, yeah, it is. It is all that you just described. But it's not. Again, it's not in your face. It's not like everybody's out there promoting like, yeah, get near Grant, you'll be like Grant, or it's not like this, childish promotion that they're out here saying. But that is the vibe. That's this unspoken vibe. I've talked about this where, like, I'm not kidding. There's a lot of people that are in that organization at some events I've been to where people are just paying thousands of dollars in hopes of just getting a picture with Grant Cardone.
Right.
I'm not kidding.
Right. It's a sort of a guru sort of thing, relationship. It's very Tony Robbins-ish. I don't know if you know who that guy is, but it's very much like that. That guy's been crawling around since the 80s. And his thing is not, he didn't come from Scientology as a manipulation thing. He got it more direct from the source of neurolinguistic programming and sort of dark psychology, you could say. We could put it that way. Grant gets it almost exclusively from Scientology and then develops his own crap and then watches MLMs and cribs from them. That's kind of how, there's so much he's doing that is so much the same as what Scientology does and what, Amway does and these kind of groups that you can't you can't help but look at it and just go, well, it's the same thing. I mean, he gets up on a stage, there's all these lights. Okay, let me guess. He gets up on a stage and there's all these lights and there's all this music and there's a lot of there's a big deep bass line, right? And the ground kind of shakes, and when he comes out, it's like, the second coming. It's like, oh my God, Grant's here. And everybody loses their collective mind.
It's not
right?
that, actually. I did a video on this where I was going over some videos I took.
Tell me.
At Con.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably what feels like a good hour. Maybe it's 30 minutes of Grant just speaking all these sayings that he has.
Yeah.
And it's all being repeated. It sounds like the voice of God. It's coming over a loudspeaker, and it's doing that for a very long time before it actually comes out. So quite creepy when you think about it.
It's so manipulative. It's so manipulative. I mean, and only because there's no there. And this is what I tried to make this at the point at the beginning, but maybe you can help me with this because you of course experienced it, right? Is you come to this point of realization that's all there is. There is sayings and mantras and feel good testimonials and you just got to work harder. And if it's not working, it's you. It's not the system, and it's not Grant. It's you. Yeah. When does that come crashing in for you, and what does that look like?
Yeah. When does that come crashing? So when I left, actually, when you're talking about
kind of the wake up moment,
Yeah, the whole victim blaming part. When I left, I was actually very polite about it, and so I had, I don't know, I had what some would call a spiritual moment, I guess, of my own that just woke me up. Let's put it that way. Very quite simplistically, woke up, realized I was in a cult. I left. And in doing so, sent a email to Grant and his team saying, hey, guys, I'm not going to be part of this organization anymore. I'm not in alignment with this stuff anymore. Go ahead and, cancel all my accounts and my emails and all this stuff that's tied to me. And then furthermore, I would like to have a conversation with Grant Cardone, just to kind of find out why he thought it was okay to teach me the things that he did and why he teaches the things he does or something like that. I don't know. And I said, and I think that's the least he could do, after I've spent almost $250,000 with the guy and been pretty loyal for the last several years. And I just got ghosted after that. I didn't hear anything.
Nope.
And I was like, I thought that was the weirdest thing. And I was like, even if they told me to piss off, or something like that, that would have been even just better than not hearing from him. But from a, supposedly or perceived professional company, and, as someone who, like I said, who was pretty loyal and spent a lot of money with that organization, I feel like I deserve some kind of response, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no. No, that's, you're in theta. That's the Scientology word for it. You just cut that off. It's like bad news. Nope. Don't want to hear it. Grant doesn't.
Yes. I started getting blocked on social media. I thought that was really weird. And again, I think at that point I didn't know what Scientology was. And then I started watching a couple Scientology documentaries. And then, like I said, dots were connecting at that point. And I was like, holy crap.
Right.
That's a Scientology cult.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy. And I was part of it. I was part of it. I can't believe it.
Okay, so how many how close into the organization itself did you get? Grant's got like 11 companies or something. I mean, he's got all this stuff going on, but the sales part, the 10X thing, is its own sort of company and endeavor, right? Is that how it's all one thing, the 10X thing?
No. So 10X, they're all different LLCs, I think.
Okay. And you were kind of up in, because you were giving money to one of these companies.
Yeah. So I was the company, or it's kind of like a franchise setup, but it's not. But basically I was referred to as a 10X business coach. They have 10X business coaches. They have 10X business ambassadors, and then a couple different other titles within the 10X organization. And then they're all different LLCs too, like 10X Health, like Gary Brecka was a part of, and all these other different.
Oh, does he do health supplements and stuff too?
What's that?
Does he do health supplements and stuff too?
Who, Gary Brecka?
Yeah, well, 10X Health. I didn't realize he had a health company. Are they selling supplements? What does that company do?
Yeah, I'm surprised you haven't heard about that. So Gary Brecka is a guy who went into partnership with Grant Cardone with 10X Health. And yes, they did do supplements. They did a lot of other stuff, maybe some red light therapy, I think.
Oh, wow. Treatment, direct treatment stuff too. Yeah,
but the latest thing, Gary Brecka actually got Dana White from the UFC on board, and or had already done work with like Kim, with like the Kardashians and stuff like that, I think, and some like big names like that. But anyways, I'm surprised you haven't heard about this because he actually just sued Grant Cardone's wife, Elena Cardone, and Grant Cardone's business partner, Brandon Dawson, for $100 million. And
is this the lawsuit? I've heard of this. I've heard of this big lawsuit. I just didn't know the players. This was what the lawsuit was. It was the health. Okay, got it.
Yes, yeah.
Connecting the dots.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's the 10X Health thing. I guess I was wondering. I guess where I was trying to go with all of that is these 11 companies, but how many people are actually working for the guy? I mean, how many people were you interfacing with as a 10X coach with what you were doing?
So with the 10X coach, I could do whatever, it's basically another company. It's another LLC.
Okay.
Because I have my own construction company that I was running, so.
Right.
And
I
so
guess I was just kind of wondering structurally how this works. I guess is where I was trying to go with that, right? It's like, so you go from a paying customer book reader. Wow, this is really interesting. I want to go to your seminars and I really want to hear all about it. And I really want to get pumped to, no, now I want to pump others up, right? Now I want to get paid for this. I want to be part of this. And that's the role of the coach, right?
Yeah, but I didn't stop pumping myself up and putting more money into.
Of course.
Yeah,
because that's the MLM.
Exactly. So, and right. It's funny you say that because it wasn't really like set up like a traditional MLM, but I've always, as I've been analyzing cults now and doing a lot of research over the last year and a half about this, I've noticed that like, they really want your mind set. They want your mind because they don't need to pay you at that point. Like if you're really gung ho for these organizations and these cults, you'll start promoting them. You'll start recruiting for free. You'll start, you know what I mean?
That's right. Promoting
for free. And I was doing that. And so when I think about it, I'm like, dang, they really just want your mind. And that's pretty scary when you think about that. Because at that point, they got your money, they got everything else on top of your money, and a little bit more in perpetuity.
That's right. Exactly. That's what we refer when we use words like a totalist organization. That's exactly. You just put it so well, right? It's like they want to own you totally. They don't just want a little part of your life; they want all of it.
Yeah.
They want you eating their food. They want you chanting their mantras. They want you dressing in their clothes. They want you, bowing to the guru, etc.
Yeah, and it's quite crazy when you realize that you can, really start to see that stuff, how it's happening to other people when people try to, tempt you with that stuff and, deceive you with that stuff. So, it's important stuff that people need to wake up to.
Well, I think so. I was just, I was just wondering when you look back now, right? Okay. So you've been out for a couple of years from this, you've been away researching, studying, talking about this. What do you see as points where you could have or should have either woken up or asked some questions or paid more attention or whatever, like what do you look back on and go, oh, well, if this and this, then maybe I could have avoided being scammed out of $250,000, right? Or like what do you look back on and see as the points of, I wish I had changed this?
Well, I mean, that one moment where I bought an $18,000 10 account Grant Cardone University thing, I think that's a great example of, that's a red flag,
Right.
There's just so many things I've seen, when Grant Cardone threw a pen at this guy's head and like, I don't know, there's just weird things like that. I was like, did nobody else see that? There's a lot of red flags that a lot of people see, like I was saying earlier. And I think a lot of us just ignore that. And if you're just, I don't know, the best way I can say it is like I said it before, is just like if you're, so in touch with your intuition, you're going to notice those red flags and it, you're not going to ignore it. You're going to say, wait, something's off with that. And so you're going to be a lot more likely to not do that and not lean into that, not do something that doesn't seem right because you just want to fit in or whatever, And so that's why I always just try to encourage people to just like, pay attention to your conscience to do what's right and pay attention to your intuition. Because I think a lot of us are not, we're kind of losing that. And then we miss those red flags in doing that,
Absolutely. No, for sure we do. Let me ask you this, because we talked about you and, your sort of relationship with Cardone and Cardone's enterprise. During the course of time that you were involved in this, did this have any effect on your family or your relationship with your business partners or your friends or employees? Did anything change as a result of your influence with Cardone?
Yeah, I mean, so I did a video talking about my daughter, and how I brought her to an event one time and she had an experience with Grant, and she met Grant and Elena and his daughters and all that stuff. And then, I think that same event, they launched 10X Kids and all that stuff. And they were looking for kids to be like ambassadors for 10X Kids and all that stuff.
10X Kids? He's doing a thing called 10X Kids?
Yeah, there's a thing called 10X Kids. Yeah.
This man has no shame. This man has no
Oh, it's
shame.
terrible.
Wow.
It's pretty terrible. So we actually, me and my daughter have talked about this on a live stream before. And, I was talking about how I was brainwashed, obviously, and I was trying to get her on board with the brainwashing, I guess, as a kid. And it's kind of it sucks. It's a bad thing, right? It sucks to think about, but anyways, we were talking about that, and my daughter was like, yeah, I didn't like it because of this. They were trying to encourage me to listen to my mentor instead of my parents, and like there was just some weird stuff she noticed even as a kid,
right,
in the program that fell off,
Yeah. It's wow. I met Grant in Scientology.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I supervised him in the course room. I trained him. I mean, not on all the things he did in Scientology. There was one particular class, which is the step between going from the lower end of the Scientology bridge to clear to the OT levels, to when you get to the big confidential Xenu stuff. It's at that point that you have to do this class to train on how to use the meter and all this crap so you can do that upper level stuff. And every Scientologist who wants to go to the upper levels has to do this course. It's not optional. You can't get around it, skip it, get out of it, anything like that. You got to do it. So he had to do this. And it was very, very clear he didn't want to be there. He was, it's very interesting. This is the only thing I really have direct observation of that I can contribute to talks about Grant, but it's just interesting because he was so, do it to me, just do it to me, just give me the superpowers, right? And he wasn't really super interested in when you have to actually roll up your sleeves and work for it, which is what this course,
I believe that,
was, right? It's interesting. It's just an interesting thing, but it was where he was somebody who was very, very similar in manner and even appearance to David Miscavige. His attitude was very similar.
Well, that's scary.
Go, 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 go. Ah! Like every moment.
He's definitely
wow, you got to step back away from this guy. He's a little electric. And I think that people might be attracted to that, not knowing what they're looking at is actually a kind of, I'll just say it's not I'm not going to psychoanalyze the guy. I'll just say it's not good energy. Put it that way.
Yeah. Well, we only talked about a couple reasons. It's really not a black and white situation as far as how, why are people attracted to people like that? He's a charismatic guy, charismatic type of guy,
Mm-hmm.
And just that alone is attractive to some people. But they, one of the things that got me was what I've noticed people are doing is let's call it fake vulnerability. That's kind of what I'm calling it. Is they got a way of getting you to drop your guard. Whether it's telling you a heart-wrenching story or something like that, getting you to open up, but for the wrong reasons, for their agenda, right. Not really to open up to connect on a meaningful relationship type level, and so, when I heard Grant Cardone in that book early that I've got introduced to him with, talking about his dad passed away, I connected with that because my dad wasn't around either. And so kind of connected with him, and he does that when in real life too, at speaking events, and has a good, he has a way of using his charisma to also get you to lower your guard. And then also, has trained all his minions there to come at you and sell you very aggressively at the right time and when to do it and how to do it. It's calculated pretty well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where he's been cribbing from, the likes of Tony Robbins and, these sort of, because there's the multi-level marketing scheme side of this. And then there's this other thing, which is adjacent to it, but different, very, very different, which is called large group awareness training, which is your landmark EST forum group trainings, these group things that you do where you don't do it one-on-one, you do it as a group, and there's a leader or something, and there's a whole series of things. NXIVM got kind of mixed up in these what are called LGAT, these large group awareness training sort of things, and there's a whole slew of stuff that goes on in these things. Like they don't let you go to the bathroom was one thing that they would do. I think they do now, but back in the day, once it started, if you left, that you wouldn't get back in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was completely arbitrary. There's absolutely no reason whatsoever that you can't just get up and go to the bathroom, except it's a control point. And the more control points you agree with and stay while it's happening and rolling out, the more they know they've got you.
Right.
It's a filtering out process too. And once people are there, there's the social pressures to stay, and you signed up and you paid money and all this crap. So you endure these petty, inconveniences and some things that aren't petty inconveniences, and they gradually build on it. And that's a way of that. There's a million different things they do to you in these LGAT trainings, but they're not good. It's just very, very, very manipulative stuff. And again, that's where Grant is cribbing a lot of his stuff from, when you get these people who know, because it's all a very planned, it's like planned spontaneity. It
Yeah.
appears organic. It appears that all this stuff is just happening, but every moment is actually very, very planned. And it just made me think of it when you said his minions and they're timed to come out. Yeah, they don't come out until they know you're at the point that Grant's gotten you to maximal susceptibility.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm curious from somebody who's lived through those things now that I've kind of framed it that way. How do you see him doing what he does? You've mentioned mantras. You've mentioned emotional manipulation where he creates this connection with you, which all good speakers do. But then it goes to this darker place with him, right? What other things do you see happening there that maybe people could... Oh, that's not good. Oh, that's not, I don't know. How do you look at your experiences with that?
Like if you're talking about like what red flags to pay attention to,
Yeah,
essentially,
exactly.
you know, that's a hard one, you know what I mean? And, it's the same reason that it's hard to, prove, you know, things are illegal or wrong in the organization. But,
Yeah.
and again, back to my point, just staying kind of true to yourself and paying really close attention to what feels bad. I don't know. I just try to keep it really simple when I'm trying to give advice to people like who are navigating the self-development matrix, and it's literally just pay attention to the energy. Does it feel good? Does it feel like it's something you should be leaning into? Or does it feel bad? Does it feel off? Something's wrong with this? Because if it does, usually there is, that's your intuition telling you something's off. So
Yeah.
that's usually the best advice I always say, like, because, that it's hard. It can happen to the best of people. Like, quite frankly, after I've been through it now, being deceived and manipulated and being in rooms where there's a lot of successful people, a bunch of other, millionaires who are doing really well. I now see that it can happen to the best of people. It can happen to smart people, not so smart people. It can happen to successful people, not successful people. It really can happen to anybody. And so, when people make comments on different interviews and stuff like that I've done with people or on other people's podcasts, they're like, "Oh, well, you deserved it," or a sucker is born every minute, or whatever. All these sayings that I've heard them all. They just don't get it, and unfortunately, it can't happen to the best of people. So I never, I got a lot of compassion for people who get taken advantage of and scammed and stuff like that, and that's why I'm out here trying to help.
Awesome. I agree. And as you mentioned, you got this YouTube channel about today's misguided mentors. And I'm curious is this just about Grant, or do you talk about other business nonsense too? Or what's this about? What are you working on?
Yeah, so it's basically about helping people identify misguided mentors, and then the second thing is helping people navigate the predatory self-development or space.
Yeah.
Whether it's a digital webinar, whether it's a public speaking event, a networking event, whatever. There's things that you can pay attention to. I talk about a lot of different things. So I'm writing a book on today's misguided mentors, so that's what I'm working on.
Great.
But
Great.
But
That's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah, it's out there, and like I said, in today's well, as we will say, troubling economic times, I imagine that there's going to be more of this, not less, right? In fact, I think that's a prediction that you could pretty much take to the bank. Is that, as people become more desperate, they're looking for more and more solutions to their problems, and they look to more and more people like a Grant Cardone, who is happy to tell them things that sound really great, but don't ultimately, there's no there. What is it that you told me to do that I'm now going to 10x my life? Oh, right. Feel better. think better. Okay, sure. Yeah, fun stuff. Okay, Ben, where exactly do people go to find you? A YouTube channel, and how else?
So make sure you go to the YouTube channel. Today's Misguided Mentors is the channel name. And then my Instagram is probably the next best thing. Benjamin John MIC is the name of that channel. So probably two best ways to get a hold of me. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, folks, well, check it out. And I hope for your success in the future moving forward with this. Folks out there, if you found this show entertaining, informative, educational in any way, consider supporting the channel, all that kind of stuff. Hit all the buttons, do all the likes, do all the shares. And I will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.